In a distant sun-drenched land, where the heat shimmered on the walls of the houses, and the air was thick with the scent of exotic spices, there lived a learned man. He was a scholar, a thinker, someone who spent his days pondering the mysteries of the world. But as the sun set and the cool night air settled over the city, he became aware of a strange phenomenon that would change his life forever. One evening, as the scholar sat by his open window, looking out at the moonlit street, he noticed something peculiar. His shadow, which should have been cast clearly on the ground, was different. It was longer, darker, and more distinct than he had ever seen it before. He stared at it in fascination, but the more he looked, the more uneasy he felt. It seemed as if the shadow had a life of its own, as if it were more than just a mere reflection of his body. Days passed, and the shadow grew bolder. It began to move independently, stretching and twisting in ways that no normal shadow could. It followed the scholar everywhere, yet it seemed to have its own will, its own desires. The scholar, though a man of reason, found himself growing fearful of this dark companion. He tried to dismiss it, to ignore the strange occurrences, but the shadow would not be denied. One night, as the moon hung high in the sky, the shadow finally spoke. It whispered to the scholar, its voice as soft as the rustling of leaves, yet as cold as the winter wind.
I am tired of being just a shadow.
It said,
I wish to live as a man, to walk the world in flesh and blood. I have learned from you, observed you, and now I shall take your place.
Before the scholar could react, the shadow slipped away, vanishing into the night. The next morning, the scholar awoke to find himself alone, his shadow gone. But as the days passed, rumors began to spread through the city. A man, remarkably similar to the scholar, had been seen walking the streets, engaging in society, living a life of luxury and influence. It was as if the shadow had truly become a man. The scholar, now without a shadow, became a shell of his former self. He was shunned, pitied, and eventually forgotten. But the shadow, who had taken on the scholar's likeness, thrived. It became wealthy, powerful, and feared. Yet, despite all its successes, the shadow could never fully escape its true nature. It remained forever tied to the darkness, haunted by the memory of the man it had once served. And so, the tale of the scholar and his shadow comes to an end, a story of ambition, identity, and the dangers of straying too far from the light. For in every man, there is a shadow, but it is up to each of us to decide who will be the master.